Director. Someone is gardening in the Vel'kara Death Jungle. Vel'kara's secondary eyelids snapped open. The emergency council chamber fell silent. Vel'kara, senior xenobotanist and generally unflappable academic, stood before the holographic display with all four hands trembling. "Repeat that," Vel'kara said slowly. Orbital scanners detected cleared paths, multiple cleared paths, forming a network. Vel'kara's claws clicked rapidly across his datapad. And lanterns. Someone has hung lanterns in the canopy, the carnivorous canopy that dissolves molecular bonds on contact. The display flickered to life. Satellite imagery of the Vel'kara Death Jungle. 200 square kilometers of the most hostile xenobotanical environment in the cataloged galaxy. 47 research expeditions over 2 centuries. 0 survivors past the 9-hour mark. The jungle consumed anything with neural activity, dissolved technology, and exhibited behavioral patterns that suggested coordinated malevolence. Except now, clear as the 3 moons, a network of paths wound through the nightmare foliage. And yes, lanterns. Dozens of them, hanging peacefully in branches that should have reduced them to constituent atoms. "Zoom in," Amelia commanded. The rescue commander leaned forward, her crest flattening in disbelief. "Sector 7, that movement." The image resolved. A human woman, maybe 30 cycles old, walked casually along one of the cleared paths. She wore simple work clothes, carried pruning shears, and stopped occasionally to tie back aggressive vines with what appeared to be garden twine. She was humming. "How long has she been inside?" Vel'kara's voice had gone very quiet. 14 hours, Vel'kara whispered. 14 hours and 17 minutes. The previous record was 9 hours. That expedition had sent back screaming before going silent. And she's... Amelia gestured helplessly at the screen, where the human was now examining a predatory bloom. Trimming. Is she trimming a Vel'kara death flower? Yes. She appears to be removing dead petals. Dead petals, Vel'kara repeated. The death flower, which liquefied Dr. Zillion's entire research team. She's been doing it for 6 minutes. The flower hasn't attacked. In fact, Vel'kara adjusted the resolution. In fact, it appears to be leaning toward her, like it's presenting the dead growth for easier removal. Someone in the council chamber made a noise like a failing atmospheric processor. "Sir," a junior technician burst through the doors. "The 3 doctoral candidates, the ones who went missing yesterday, their life signs just activated." Activated? Amelia was on her feet. "Where?" "Inside the jungle. Sector 9. They're moving, following the cleared paths toward..." The technician checked her scanner. "Toward the human." Vel'kara's tendrils went rigid. "Get me high command. Get me the Galactic Ecological Survey. And someone explain to me how a human is accomplishing what 2 centuries of our best scientists couldn't." On the screen, the human, completely unaware of the crisis she was causing, pulled out a thermos, sat down on what looked like a predatory vine, and had a tea break. The vine coiled supportively beneath her like a bench. "That's a thornwhip vine," Vel'kara said faintly. "It's supposed to impale prey and drain cerebrospinal fluid." "It's being furniture," Amelia countered. Yes, it is." The human took another sip of tea, checked a small notebook, and stood. She walked further into the jungle. And the plants that had killed hundreds, simply moved aside. "Someone," Vel'kara said, "get me a communication drone that won't be dissolved the moment it enters that nightmare. I want to talk to her." "Sir, we've lost 43 communication drones to that jungle. Then make it 44. Do it now. The emergency session stretched into its 4th hour. High Command had been contacted. The Galactic Ecological Survey had reviewed the satellite data 3 times and confirmed what everyone was seeing. Impossible. By every principle of xenobotany we understand, the survey representative said via hologram that human should be dead. The Vel'kara responds to neural activity, electromagnetic fields, and carbon-based metabolism with immediate aggression. She's broadcasting all 3. Could she have some kind of shielding? Someone suggested. Kailthas pulled up the spectral analysis. No shielding. No protective equipment beyond standard work boots. She has pruning shears, twine, solar lanterns, and... He zoomed in on her belt. A water bottle with a cartoon earth animal on it. What's the animal? Archives say a capybara. Extremely non-threatening herbivore from human homeworld. On screen, the human had now created what appeared to be a rest station. A small cleared area with 3 of her lanterns, a rudimentary bench made from bent vines, cooperative vines, and what might have been a trail marker. She was installing directional signs. She's making a hiking trail, Azila said in wonder. She's treating the Death Jungle like a public park. Update, a technician called. The 3 doctoral candidates. They've reached her position. Every screen in the chambers switched to maximum magnification. 3 bedraggled students emerged from the undergrowth, following the marked trail. The human looked up, smiled, and waved. She said something. Audio wasn't available at this range, and gestured to her rest station. The students practically collapsed onto her vine bench. She handed them her water bottle. She's giving them water, Vexthul said, in the middle of the Death Jungle, having a social interaction. The jungle is... Kailthas's voice cracked. The plants are giving them space, forming a protective perimeter. This violates everything. The human pulled out what looked like ration bars from her pack, distributed them to the students, and appeared to be asking if they were okay. A Wanao student pointed back the way they'd come. The human nodded, made a note in her notebook, and pointed to her trail markers. The student nodded. She's giving them directions out, Azila realized. She's created an evacuation route. While having a snack break, someone added unnecessarily. The human stood, patted one of the students on the shoulder in what appeared to be reassurance, and headed deeper into the jungle. The students, after a moment's rest, began following the marked trail back toward the jungle's edge. Get a medical team to the perimeter, Vexthul ordered. I want those students examined and debriefed the moment they emerge, and someone tell me we have a communication solution. Working on it, sir. But every drone we send gets within 100 meters and... Then send it to her. If she can hang lanterns, maybe she can hang a communication relay. It was insane. It was also currently the best option they had. On screen, the human had stopped at a particularly dense section of Canopy. She looked up, studying the interwoven branches. Then she pulled out what appeared to be a retractable pole, extended it, and began hanging another lantern. The branches that had crushed a research mech the previous year, carefully repositioned themselves to make her installation easier. I'm going to need so much documentation of this, Kailthas muttered. So much documentation. The human finished hanging the lantern, tested it with a satisfied nod, and moved on. Behind her, the jungle remained peacefully illuminated, the predatory plants seemingly content with their new lighting fixtures. Sir, the technician said, the students have exited the jungle. They're coherent and uninjured. Get them to the debriefing room, now. The 3 doctoral candidates sat wrapped in thermal blankets, drinking nutrient solutions, and looking shell-shocked but healthy. Vel'kara, Kyle, and Azila crowded into the medical bay's interview room. "How are you alive?" Azila asked bluntly. The students looked at each other. One of them, a young female named Sinara, spoke first. "The human. She found us." "Found you how?" "We'd gotten separated from each other after the acid trap in Sector 12. I was trying to navigate by compass, but the electromagnetic interference." She shook her head. "I was dying. The vines had started to close in. Then I saw light, her lanterns. I followed them and found a cleared path." "The plants didn't attack you?" "They tried at first, but as soon as I got near her path markers, they stopped, like there was a boundary they wouldn't cross." Kyle leaned forward. "Describe the human's behavior, everything you observed." The second student, Jotaro, spoke up. "She was talking to the plants." Silence. "Talking to them," Vel'kara repeated. "Yes, sir, in her language, but also just talking. Like you talk to a nervous animal. Soft voice, calm. She'd touch the vines gently, move them aside. Sometimes she'd prune them, and this sounds insane, but she'd apologize while doing it." "Apologize?" "Say things like, 'Sorry, buddy, this bit's dead,' or 'Just a little trim, you'll feel better.'" "And the plants?" Jotaro's crest flattened in confusion. They'd let her. The thorn whips would retract. The death flowers would close. Everything just cooperated. Sinara cut in. "She told us the jungle was stressed. Those were her words. She said it needed proper maintenance and someone to teach it boundaries." Kyle's hands had stilled completely. "She said the jungle needed teaching." "Yes, sir. She said we'd been bothering it with loud drones and fear chemicals, whatever those are." "Pheromones," Kyle said faintly. "Our species releases stress pheromones. She means we've been approaching with fear, and the jungle responded to that fear." She also said, the third student, R. Hill, spoke for the first time. "She said we were treating a garden like a war zone. That of course it was defensive." The implications crashed through the room like a meteorite. 200 years, Azila said slowly. 200 years of approaching the Vel'kara as a hostile entity. With weapons, with fear, with the assumption of combat. And she walks in with pruning shears and kindness. Vel'kara finished. And it responds like any stressed organism would respond to care. "Sir," Sinara added quietly. "When we left, she was training the vines, showing them how to grow as archways over her paths. They were following her guidance." "Training them," Kelthas repeated. "She's a landscaper," she said. "Trail designer. She does this professionally on human colony worlds. She treats our planet's greatest xenobiological threat," Vel'kara said, "like an overgrown public park." "Yes, sir, and it's working." Kelthas hadn't slept. He'd spent the entire night reviewing 2 centuries of Vel'kara expedition data with new eyes. Every report, every death, every mysterious attack. The patterns were devastatingly clear. Every expedition had approached with weapons. Every team had broadcast fear. Every research attempt had involved invasive equipment, loud machinery, aggressive sampling techniques. The jungle had responded to perceived threats with proportional force. The human, he'd finally gotten her name from colony registration. Amelia Garcia, landscape architect, recently immigrated from Earth, had done the opposite of everything in the protocols. She'd entered with hand tools, moved slowly, touched plants gently, provided light without heat, maintained consistent presence without aggression, treated the ecosystem as a partner rather than an enemy. And the jungle, after 200 years of being treated like a war zone, had finally encountered someone who understood it needed a gardener. "Sir," a technician burst into his lab, "we got communication through." Kael'thas ran. The command center had every screen active. And there, in crystal clarity, was Amelia Garcia. She'd apparently hung the communication relay on a vine like she'd hung her lanterns. The vine held it steady. "Can you hear me? Testing, testing." She tapped the relay. "This thing on?" "Yes," Vel'kara practically shouted. "Yes, we can hear you. Ms. Garcia." "Oh, good. Your drone found me about an hour ago. Nice little guy. I've got it charging on solar up here." She gestured up at the Canopy, where presumably their military-grade reconnaissance drone was being powered by her camping equipment. "Ms. Garcia, do you understand what you've accomplished?" She blinked at the camera. "Sorry, accomplished what?" "I'm just doing trail maintenance. You folks have really let this place go." "That place," Azila interjected, "has killed hundreds of researchers. It's classified as the most dangerous xenobotanical environment in the surveyed galaxy." "This?" Amelia looked around. "This is just a scared forest with no one teaching it boundaries. It's a bit aggressive because you keep sending, sorry, no offense, but you keep sending warriors. It doesn't need warriors. It needs a gardener." The command center was silent. "A gardener," Vel'kara said. "Yeah. Look, I do this professionally. New colonial ecosystems, hostile plant integration, trail systems through difficult terrain. This forest is actually pretty cooperative once you treat it with respect." She paused. Did nobody try just asking the plants nicely? Asking them. Well, not asking. They don't have language. But approach, You've been coming in here with chainsaws and fear stink. Of course, everything attacks. Kael'thas found his voice. "Ms. Garcia, could you demonstrate your methodology?" "Sure, hang on." She adjusted the camera. The view shifted to show a massive predatory vine, its barbs still dripping with digestive enzymes. "See this guy? You've probably classified him as highly aggressive, right? That's a Vel'kara thornwhip. It's killed 17 people. Right. Because look, see how he's reaching toward that gap in the canopy? He's trying to get sunlight. You've got smaller plants blocking his light, so he's stressed and lashing out." She gently moved some of the undergrowth. "If we just prune this section here and train him to grow this way, toward natural light." The thorn whip, which should have been impaling her forearm, slowly retracted its barbs. It shifted, almost thoughtfully, toward the direction she'd indicated. "Good boy," Amelia said, patting it. The thorn whip curled slightly, almost like it was pleased. "That's impossible," someone whispered. "It's behavioral ecology through landscaping," Amelia corrected cheerfully. "Same thing I did on Proxima 7 with those crystalline trees. They were just stressed because nobody understood their growth cycle. Once we worked with them instead of against them, they were fine." She turned the camera back to herself. "Look, these so-called aggressive vines. Just reaching for resources. The acid traps, defensive responses to invasive equipment. Those carnivorous flowers. They were trying to close wounds from your research drills. Everything you've classified as attacks were fear responses." 200 years, Kael'thas said softly. 200 years of approaching this as a combat zone. "Yeah, that'd do it." Amelia shrugged. "You've been treating a living ecosystem like it's trying to kill you, so it defended itself. But if you just..." She gestured around at her cleared paths, her lanterns, the peacefully arranged canopy. Maintain it properly. Respect its needs. Give it boundaries with kindness. It's actually pretty chill. Vexathul's tendrils were knotted in a way that indicated deep thought. Ms. Garcia, would you be willing to consult with our xenobotanical department? We would like to understand your methods. Sure, but I'm going to need bigger ladders and more lanterns. This place is huge, and I've only cleared maybe 5% of it. She checked her notebook. I'm thinking Thursday I'll extend the Southern Path network. Friday's good for canopy work. Oh, and someone needs to bring fertilizer. The deathflowers are actually just nutrient deprived. That's why they're carnivorous. The deathflowers can be fixed with fertilizer, Azila said weakly. Probably. Worth trying. They're just hungry. Amelia glanced at something off-screen. Oh, hey, looks like more of your people. You folks really need to update your jungle protocols. Be right back. The screen showed her walking off camera. In the distance, another research team could be seen, looking panicked and lost. Amelia waved, called something cheerful, and pointed to her trail markers. The team, clearly confused but desperate, followed her directions. She's created, Vexthul said slowly, the first safe zone in the Vel'kara in recorded history, using basic landscaping principles. And she's expanding it, Kael'thas added. She's systematically converting hostile territory into maintained trails. On screen, Amelia returned. Yeah, those folks should be fine. I've got pretty clear signage now. Anyway, about that consulting thing, I'm happy to help, but full disclosure, I used similar techniques on some really aggressive ivy in Brooklyn once. This is just scaling up. You compared our death jungle to earth ivy, someone said. I mean, it's more diverse and the chemical defenses are more sophisticated, but the principle's the same. Stressed plant needs proper care, responds to patient maintenance. She paused. Oh, and I'm going to need payment in advance, standard colonial consultation rates. You can wire it to my account. I'm licensed through the Galactic Landscaping Guild. The Galactic Landscaping Guild, Vexthul repeated. Yeah, we handle hostile ecosystem integration. It's a whole field. You should look us up. There was, it turned out, an entire branch of human expertise dedicated to exactly this problem. They just never thought to consult gardeners about their death. Jungle. Ms. Garcia, Kael'thas said, you've fundamentally changed our understanding of this ecosystem. We'll wire the payment immediately, and thank you. You've saved lives today. Just doing my job. Oh, one more thing. That vine that's holding your relay? His name's Bernard. I've been training him as a communication post. If you need to reach me, send signals to Bernard. He's very reliable. You named the Vel'kara Thornwhip Bernard. He needed a name. Anyway, I should get back to work. These lanterns won't hang themselves. Well, actually, the vines are getting pretty good at helping, but I should supervise. The screen went dark. The command center remained silent for a long moment. Then Vexthul said very quietly, get me the Galactic Council. Tell them we need to reclassify 47 impassable zones across surveyed space. And someone find me a human who understands gardening. Sir, Azila said. What do we tell them? Tell them, Vexthul said, that we've been approaching hostile ecosystems as military problems when we should have been hiring landscapers. Tell them a human fixed our 200-year disaster in 14 hours with pruning shears and patience. Tell them... He paused. Tell them to send more Amelias. The Galactic Ecological Survey's emergency session lasted 6 hours. Representatives from 40 systems crowded into the virtual chamber, all reviewing the same satellite footage. Amelia Garcia, casually gardening in the Vel'kara, while the Death Jungle cooperated. Therapeutic horticulture as xenoecological first contact. Kael'thas presented his preliminary paper. We have approached unknown ecosystems with the assumption of hostility. Humans approach with the assumption of potential partnership. That's not quite accurate, a human representative corrected. She was older, silver-haired, with dirt under her fingernails. We assume everything can be either befriended or maintained. Sometimes both. Your death jungle just needed someone who understood plant stress responses. And the solution is gardening, a representative from the Zin Collective said. The solution is treating living systems as living systems, the human replied. Not as obstacles to overcome, but as ecosystems to work with. It's not complicated. You just need patience and basic horticultural knowledge. And humans have this knowledge? We've been gardening for 10,000 years. We've domesticated everything from grasses to predators. Of course we have this knowledge. A collective member pulled up a data file. We have 47 zones classified as impassable due to hostile xenobotany. You're suggesting human gardeners could address these? Probably. I'd have to see them. But yeah, if they're just stressed ecosystems defending themselves, standard horticultural therapy should work. She paused. Do any of them need landscape architects? I know some people. The implications spread through the chamber like slow-growing vines. 200 years of the galaxy's best xenobotanists had been defeated by a problem that required a landscaper. On the primary screen, updated satellite footage showed Amelia's progress. In 3 days, she'd expanded her trail network to cover 15% of the Vel'kara. Her lanterns dotted the canopy like stars. Research teams were now entering and exiting safely using her marked paths. The deathflowers, properly fertilized, had stopped being carnivorous and were producing beautiful blooms. Bernard the Thornwhip had become the unofficial communication hub, reliably holding equipment and occasionally helping Amelia reach high branches. She's revolutionized our approach to hostile environments, Vexthul reported, by treating them like public parks in need of maintenance. And the jungle responds? The jungle is thriving. We're recording new growth patterns, cooperative behavior between species, and a dramatic reduction in aggressive responses. Ms. Garcia believes the ecosystem was suffering from 2 centuries of trauma and defensive stress. She's treating it with consistent care, and it's healing. The human representative smiled. That tracks. Plants respond to patient care, even the hostile ones. We're establishing a new department, Vexthul continued. Botanical relations. We're hiring human gardeners, landscapers, and horticultural therapists. Our entire approach to xenobotany is being rewritten. About time, the human said cheerfully. You folks have been over-militarizing plant interactions for years. Plants aren't enemies. They're just plants. Treat them right. They'll usually cooperate. Usually. The word hung in the air with comfortable certainty. From the human perspective, even the galaxy's most dangerous ecosystem was just another gardening project. Thursday morning, Amelia stood at the edge of her southern expansion, surveying the territory ahead. Dense growth, multiple predatory species, and according to the Academy's maps, 3 separate lethal zones. She sipped her coffee from her capybara mug and made notes. Behind her, Bernard and several other cooperative vines waited patiently. She'd been training them in trail maintenance. They were getting good at it. All right, guys, she said, addressing the vines like a construction crew. We're extending paths today. Remember, gentle clearing, preserve the good growth, prune only what's dead or blocking light. Everyone ready? The vines shifted in what she'd learned to interpret as agreement. Great, let's do this. She walked forward into the lethal zone, pruning shears in hand, humming a song from Earth. The jungle, after a moment's hesitation, moved aside to let her through. 3 hours later, she had a break scheduled. She'd hung 4 more lanterns, cleared 2 new paths, and discovered a section of bioluminescent moss that was actually quite beautiful once you removed the aggressive undergrowth choking it. Her communicator, now permanently linked to Bernard's relay, post buzzed. "Miss Garcia," Cale Thas's voice came through. "We're receiving reports of activity in the southern expansion. Is everything—" "Yep, all good. Just found some gorgeous moss. You folks should really see this. I think it's been trying to spread, but the thorn whips were blocking its light." "The thorn whips are cooperating with your clearing?" "Yeah, I explained the moss needs space. They got it. They're actually helping now. It's pretty cute." Cute. She described the coordination between the lethal plant species as cute. "Ms. Garcia, the Galactic Council has requested your consultation on 17 other hostile ecosystems." 17? Wow. Okay, I'll need to check my schedule. Send me the details. And listen, for the Vel'kara, okay? Here, I'm thinking we install benches at the rest stations. Real ones, not just vine furniture. And maybe some informational plaques about the ecosystem. Make it educational. You want to turn the Death Jungle into a nature walk? I mean, yeah, that's the goal. It's a beautiful forest. People should be able to appreciate it safely. That's basic park design. Of course, basic park design. Cool. Oh, and tell your fabrication team I need an extension ladder. The upper canopy's got some structural issues that need addressing. You're going into the upper canopy. How else am I going to hang the lanterns up there? Don't worry, the vines will spot me. We've got a good system going. The communication went silent for a moment. Then, "Ms. Garcia, you're teaching the Death Jungle to be a safety spotter. They're very strong and they understand spatial awareness now. It's efficient." "Right, of course, efficient. Anyway, gotta go. These paths won't maintain themselves. Talk later." She clicked off and returned to her work. Above her, the canopy rustled. Several vines lowered themselves helpfully, offering support for her next climb. She patted the nearest one. "Thanks, Benedict. You're a good boy, too." She'd started naming them, all of them. The Death Jungle, which had killed hundreds, was now full of Bernards, Benedicts, Barbaras, and one particularly enthusiastic thornwhip named Beatrice, who'd learned to coil into perfect bench shapes. Amelia climbed into the canopy, supported by cooperative predatory vines, and began the delicate work of hanging lanterns where no one had ever survived reaching. Below her, her trail network stretched like arteries through the jungle. Lanterns glowed softly. Research teams walked safely along marked paths. The ecosystem hummed with healthy, non-hostile growth. She'd been there a week. In Academy headquarters, a meeting room full of the galaxy's finest xenobotanists sat in stunned silence, watching satellite footage of a human woman having a pleasant afternoon of canopy gardening in the most dangerous environment their civilization had ever encountered. She's transformed 2 centuries of lethal territory, Vexthul said quietly, into a hiking trail. With benches, Azila added. She wants benches and educational plaques. She's treating our greatest mystery like a colonial park. Yes. They watched as Amelia finished hanging another lantern, waved cheerfully at the satellite, she somehow always knew where it was, and descended back to ground level. A team of botanists who'd been trapped in Sector 16 3 hours ago walked past, following her signs, completely safe. "Sir," Kyle Thas said, What do we do with this information? We adapt, Vel'kara replied. We learn. We hire more humans who understand gardening. And we accept that sometimes the most complex problems require the simplest solutions. Landscaping. Landscaping, he confirmed. On screen, Amelia pulled out her thermos again, sat down on Bernard, who coiled supportively, and had another tea break. She pulled out her notebook and began sketching designs for what appeared to be an arched gateway at the southern trail entrance. She's designing an entrance feature, someone observed. Of course she is. Next, she'll want a gift shop. Don't give her ideas. But it was too late. Amelia was already making notes about native plant seedlings for visitors and educational materials about ecosystem conservation. The Death Jungle was becoming a tourist destination. And in homes across the planet, families were already planning to visit the famous Garcia trail system, where you could safely walk through what had once been certain death, surrounded by lantern light and cooperative vines. Learning about the ecosystem that had been saved by one human with pruning shears and infinite patience. The Academy's hazard maps were being updated. The Vel'kara Death Jungle's new designation: Maintained Conservation Area, Gardener on Site. Status changed from lethal to requires horticultural staff. And when Amelia was informed of her new official title, Senior Ecosystem Relations Specialist and Chief Botanical Therapist, her response was perfectly characteristic. Cool. Can someone help me carry these mulch bags? The northern section needs soil amendment.